play a game?
What's going on, everybody? I'm about to do something that I have not done since February, and that is a movie review. Yes, some of the theaters have started to open back up. One of the ones that I went to is about 20 minutes away from me, depending on how you're driving and how the traffic is. And this is my first time being inside of a theater since February. The last movie I reviewed was, I think it was Sonic. And before I get into the review of the movie that I did see, I'm gonna do a whole separate video talking about what it was like going back into a theater post, I guess you can say, quote unquote, quarantine, and how everything pretty much is now. How everything is now, it'll probably surprise you. But anyway, the movie that I went to go see was the long-awaited The New Mutants. Now, this movie, I said this movie had a curse on it, because this movie was actually supposed to come out back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Then they had to put it to the side because I think they needed to do some reshoots or some other stuff that they had to do to it. It sat on the shelf for like 2 years. And then finally, when they were getting ready to release it in April of this year, what happened? The virus kicked in, and then they had to push it back. Then they was gonna release it, I think, like in July or something like that. Then it got pushed back again, and then they finally decided to release it this weekend. And people were saying, why don't they just put it on Disney Plus, because, you know, it's under Fox and everything like that. Part of the contract for this movie was it had to have a theatrical release before going to any type of streaming platform, or VOD, which stands for video on demand. So they had to honor that contract. No matter how much money the movie makes or doesn't make, it had to have a theatrical run for a certain amount of time before they put it on the streaming platform. Otherwise, you'll have some lawsuits on their hands, and I'm sure that's something they didn't want to deal with. And this is technically the last X-Men film that is under the Fox slate before the merge happened with Disney. So, of course, they wanted to make sure they hurried up and got that out of the way. But I just wanted to put that out there because people were still wondering, why wasn't this movie just put on streaming like how they did with Mulan? Mulan is just a straight-up Disney film. So they had the honor of actually being able to pull that off. But anyway, now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about this movie, The New Mutants. So basically, this movie, because when I first learned about it, I was like, when in the timeline does this happen? I wasn't sure when it happened, but after watching the movie, I kind of see where the timeline is at. And it's actually not really so much in the past. It's actually very present based on this one particular clip that they showed in the movie. And if you saw Logan, you'll understand what I mean by that. Little spoiler right there. But anyway, basically the movie, The New Mutants, is about these five, let me see, it is five. It is 5 teenagers who are all in this facility. They don't know why they're there. Their claim is that they are being, taken care of because they have these abilities. They want to make sure that they're safe before they can put them out there into the world. They're under the watchful eye of this woman by the name of Dr. Reyes. And she basically, from the get-go, you can tell that she has some ulterior motives, but she kind of tells them these things to kind of coerce them to actually stay in this program that they have going on. But it really turns out she has dark, I guess you could say a dark aura about herself, but you don't know exactly what it is. And I could kind of tell that right off the bat when I saw the trailers for it. I said something about this woman just seems to be off. There's something more to her than what she's putting out there. But basically, the 5 characters are Danny Moonstar, Ilyana Rasputin, and I'm gonna go through what their abilities are. I forgot his last name, but his name is Roberto. Then you have, I forgot what the other guy's name is, but I'll tell you his ability. And you have the other one her name is Rain. I'm gonna go through each of their abilities and basically, who they are. The first one I want to talk about is Danny Moonstar. She's basically the most powerful one there. Her ability is that she's able to bring out people's fears and make them relive it over and over again into reality, to the point where it could probably kill them. And sometimes when she brings out the fear of other people, and the thing is, she's doing it subconsciously, so sometimes she doesn't really know what it is. She's bringing out the fear of other people when she's probably in fear herself. So if you are say that you are scared of the dark, you could be walking around in the middle of the day and she could just automatically shroud you in darkness and anyone around you, to the point where you'll probably be like in a panic mode. And she's like so powerful that she has been deemed not able to live. In other words, they want to get rid of her permanently because she's so powerful. They're saying that we can't even turn her into a killer because she might end up killing us. So we have to find a way to get rid of her. So that's basically what her power is. Ilyana Rasputin, last name Rasputin for my comic book heads out there. She is the sister to Colossus. That is his sister. There was really it wasn't actually any reference mentioning of him in the movie. But basically her code name is Magik. The name pretty much speaks for itself. She can basically teleport. She can create portals. She can put you in limbo. She also has something called a soul sword that'll come out of her arm. It almost reminds me of the sword from Halo. If you played the game Halo before, it almost mixes between that and a lightsaber. That kind of reminds me of those two. I think a lot of people who see this movie will say that she was one of their favorite characters because she was like a rebel. Like, she was the badass. Like, and in some cases she was the bitch because of the stuff that she said, especially to the Danny Moonstar character early on in the film. And also, speaking of Danny Moonstar, she's the one that actually brought out like one of the biggest villains of the film. This is actually going off of the Demon Bear storyline, and she's the one that brings that character out into the forefront because that's her fear, and that's like the biggest thing that they have to deal with going forward. And like I said, Magik, she basically, like I said, she can teleport, she can create the soul sword. Her biggest fear is these weird looking creatures, like these tall, lanky, I want to say guys, but they're not guys. They have these long fingers. They have like no eyes, and they have this weird looking mouth. They always wear the smiley face on, like mask on, because that's how they disguise themselves. And that's basically her fear. The other character, Rain, she plays Wolfsbane. And by the way, for those of you who watch Game of Thrones, she's the one that plays Arya Stark on Game of Thrones. That's who plays her. She plays Wolfsbane. She can basically turn into a werewolf. One critique I would say about how they did her character is I wish that we saw more of her as Wolfsbane instead of her as herself with just the long nails and the fangs and everything like that, and just a little bit of fur. Because Wolfsbane can actually turn into a werewolf. And there were only a couple times when that actually did happen, but she remained almost more human-like in the film than she did as a werewolf. But she was basically a pretty, I guess you could say, aggressive character, because I wasn't sure what they were going to do with her character. Just looking at the trailers, at first I thought they were going to try to make her look like this scared child or, teen. But she actually had some action scenes where she actually did some things, because her character, her fear is this heavily religious figure that has accused her of basically being a witch, that has branded her on her back and on her neck. And that's basically her fear. Like, he's this being that almost looks like, I guess you can say, something to deal with the church. And that's basically, he's one of those heavily sacrilegious type of people that always say, oh, you're going to hell because you're this and because you're that and everything like that. That's basically her character. The other character is Roberto. He plays Sunspot. If you saw X-Men Days of Future Past, his character was actually in that movie. He had a very small part, but we never knew who his name was. But we knew who he was because his name was mentioned. And that's basically, he can turn himself into like one of the hottest forms of the sun. And that's basically the power set that he can use. Now, he didn't use his power that much. It was nice. It was a good visual to look at when he would power up to the, but whenever he powered up, it kind of reminded me of the Human Torch from Fantastic Four. You know how he would turn into nothing but fire, like walking fire. That's kind of what he reminded me of. But I wish we was able to see more of his power. He really only used his power whenever he was showing how he was scared to use his power, and one part when he was trying to fight the demon bear. Now, his fear is, sorry about the light. Hold on, y'all. But his biggest fear was he was scared to get close to people because, sorry about that, I had to turn my car on right quick. Raw footage. But anyway, his biggest fear was getting close to people because he got into an incident with his girlfriend, in whenever someone gets close to him, his body will heat up, and he ended up burning her. And they actually do show that. As a matter of fact, it's not really much of a spoiler because they mentioned it in one of the trailers. They kind of showed it in the trailer, and then of course they talk about it again in the movie. So that's basically his fear of getting close to people because of, you know, burning them, and then, you know, it reminded him of him burning his girlfriend. Now, the last character is Cannonball. I don't watch Stranger Things, but people say that this actor plays on Stranger Things. And basically, that's his power. He can turn himself into a human cannonball. And his biggest fear is he used to work in a coal mine with his dad and, you know, everything like that. And, you know, he ended up killing his dad. And it's a fear of that all coming back on to him. And I'm guessing he has a fear of being in closed spaces, because, you know, in a coal mine, you're in a very closed, tight space. There's a lot of people down there. It's hot, and there's a lot of work that is, you know, going on. But one thing I would say that they have in common with all of their fears is every last one of their fears that they have involves with them killing someone. Not because they wanted to do it, but when it comes to being a mutant, it's a thing of when they're getting older, when they're going through a certain level of their life, like puberty, and they actually mention this in the movie, they don't know how to control their powers. So they, you know, and the thing is, becoming a mutant, it's like you go through your life normal one day as a regular human being, and then all of a sudden you develop these powers and you don't know what's going on. So anybody in that state would panic. So that's pretty much what it is. And basically, once the characters figure out what's going on, now they pretty much have to figure out how to get out of this facility. And then of course they figure out everything is not exactly what it seems, especially with that so-called doctor. Now, it was one thing that I heard that people had an issue with the casting with two of the characters, which was the Dr. Reyes, and the Sunspot character. Because in the comics, Dr. Reyes is actually an Afro-Latina, but it looks to me like they casted I guess you can say a straight, I don't know what nationality the actress is, but she's definitely not Afro-Latina. At first, I heard that they wanted to have Rosario Dawson play her, but at the time of them filming the movie, she was still attached to what used to be the Marvel Netflix series, like, you know, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones and all of those stuff, so they couldn't get her, so they replaced her and got her. And I forgot what show the actress used to play on, but it was a show that she was the lead character, because I remember seeing her somewhere. But that was an issue. And then also with the Sunspot character, he is supposed to be Brazilian, but he's supposed to be like an Afro-Brazilian, like a more of a darker hue, like a more brown skin type. And they kind of did the same thing with him as well. So people did take issue with that. But see, that was a while ago. Some people probably had forgot that was even an issue by the time this movie came out, because some people were just over it. They were just ready for the movie to come out. They were just like, okay, it is what it is. Oh, okay, just put the movie out there. That's probably at this point. I'm sure that the cast and crew are probably like, finally, this movie is out there. The people can go see it. If they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. Like I said, I had issues with the movie. One thing I did like is that it took a different direction with how they do comic book movies. This had a horror element to it, which is something you rarely ever see when it comes to these type of films. And I think originally they were going to make the movie rated R, but then they ended up making it PG-13. I think they should have went with the R rating, but I can understand why they didn't go with the R rating, because they wanted to attract kids as well to go see it. But with the way some of them were cursing in this movie, they damn near almost went the Logan route. And, you know, they went straight rated R for that, just like they went rated R for Deadpool as well. But I don't think they wanted to have the same thing that happened with Logan and Deadpool, especially with Deadpool, because you had them people coming up there saying, well, I took my kids to go see Deadpool, and he did all this cursing. He was so raunchy and all types of stuff. Like, it was like, did you look at the rating? And have you ever read the Deadpool comics? He's a very raunchy character, even though he's a comic book character. Just because it's a comic book character doesn't mean it's just necessarily for kids. But they could have actually went with the R rating, but I understand why they decided not to go with the R rating. But all in all, the movie was pretty decent for what it had. It had some issues with it. It wasn't terrible, in my honest opinion. It needed not to be terrible, considering all the times they had made us wait for this movie to finally come out and get the release that it needed, because we've been sitting by, like, waiting for this movie. Some people actually were waiting to see what this movie was going to do, because we're introducing new characters into a storyline now. If they're going to continue going forward with this, I don't know, because that was still technically under Fox. If they can, you know, find a way to merge them into the MCU somehow, good. If they can't, then, you know, they'll just have to deal with this one movie. But that's pretty much my review for the New Mutants. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I don't know if y'all are actually going to go see it, if y'all are going to wait for it to come onto a streaming platform, or like some of you, and I know some of you, are probably going to go on the Fire Stick and see if you can find it on there. But y'all let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you in the next one.